Picture this. You're at a party, or a work event, or a coffee shop, and across the room, there's someone you want to talk to. Maybe it's a colleague you've never properly met. Maybe it's someone your friend introduced you to for 30 seconds before disappearing. Maybe, and this is the one that really gets people, it's someone you're genuinely attracted to, and you freeze, not because you're unintelligent, not because you have nothing to say, but because in that specific moment, with that specific person, the simple act of walking over and opening your mouth feels like the most terrifying thing in the world. Your heart rate spikes. Your brain goes blank. You start running through opening lines and rejecting all of them in real time. Too weird. Too boring. Too try hard. Too nothing. So you don't go. You stay where you are, nursing your drink, telling yourself you'll do it in a minute. And then the moment passes. And you go home with that familiar low-grade frustration of a conversation that never happened. If that sounds like you are not broken. You are not antisocial. You are not fundamentally different from the people who seem to glide through social situations without a second thought. You're just untrained in a specific skill. And like every skill, it can be learned. Here is the real secret to mastering small talk. No matter how shy you are, no matter who you're trying to talk to, first, understand what small talk actually is. Most people hate small talk because they misunderstand what it's for. They think small talk is supposed to be interesting. They think it's supposed to lead somewhere profound immediately. They approach it like a performance. Like they need to say something clever or impressive or memorable in the first 30 seconds, or the whole thing is a failure. That's not what small talk is. That's not what it's ever been. Small talk is a handshake. It's not the relationship, but it's the beginning of one. Its entire purpose is to create a low-pressure opening where two people can establish that they're safe to talk to. That's it. The goal of small talk is not to impress. The goal is to make the other person comfortable enough to keep talking. Once you understand that, the pressure drops significantly. You're not performing. You're opening a door. The content barely matters. The warmth matters. The attention matters. The signal that you're genuinely interested in this person, that's what small talk is actually delivering. 1. Start with your environment, not yourself. The biggest mistake shy people make when starting a conversation is going internal. They focus on what to say, how they sound, what the other person is thinking. All of that energy turns inward, and the conversation never gets off the ground. The fix is simple. Go external. Look at what's around you. Every environment you're in is full of conversation material, not deep material. That comes later. But enough to open the door. You're at a work event. How do you know the people here? You're at a coffee shop. Have you tried anything else on the menu? You're in a queue that's moving absurdly slowly. This line is something else. You're at the gym and someone just finished using the equipment you need. How do you usually structure your sessions? None of these are clever. None of them are impressive. They don't need to be. They just need to be human. An observation, a question, a light comment. Anything that signals you're present and open. The environment gives you infinite material. All you have to do is look up from inside your own head long enough to use it. 2. The follow-up is everything. Here's where most shy people stall. They manage the opening. They say something, the other person responds, and then they hit a wall. The conversation dies after 2 exchanges, and the silence rolls in like fog. The reason this happens is almost always the same. They're not listening closely enough to what the other person just said. Every answer someone gives you contains threads, details you can pull on, words that open new directions. The key to keeping a conversation alive is not having a list of topics ready in your head. It's paying real attention to what you're being given and following it somewhere. Or someone says, "I just got back from a work trip." Most people say, "Oh, nice. Where?" That's fine. But a better listener catches something deeper and says, "Work trip. Are those usually good for you or do you find them exhausting?" Now you're not asking about geography. You're asking about their experience. You're showing that you're interested in them, not just filling silence with the next logical question. That shift, from surface questions to experience questions, is what separates conversations people remember from conversations people forget the moment they end. 3. Specifically, talking to someone you're attracted to. Let's address a situation that sends even relatively confident people into full system shutdown. You see someone, they're attractive, you want to talk to them. And suddenly everything you know about conversation evaporates completely. Here's the first thing to understand. Attraction makes people weird not because talking to attractive people is fundamentally harder, but because the stakes feel higher. When you talk to a colleague you don't care about, you're relaxed because the outcome doesn't matter. When you're talking to someone you're genuinely drawn to, every word feels like it counts for something. That pressure is what creates the performance. And performance is what kills connection. So the first adjustment is mental. Approach the conversation the same way you would with anyone else. Not as a chance to impress them or win them over, but as a chance to find out if you actually like each other. Shift the question from, will they like me, to do I like them? That one reframe puts you back in a position of agency instead of anxiety. For guys specifically, because this is where it tends to get most complicated, the fear is almost always rejection. The imagined scenario where you walk over, say something, and get shot down in a way that confirms every insecurity you've ever had. Here's the reality. Most people, men and women, are not waiting to reject you. They're waiting to feel comfortable. The person you're thinking about talking to is almost certainly not sitting there hoping nobody approaches them. They're hoping that if someone does approach them, that person seems normal and genuine and not weird about it. Being normal and genuine and not weird about it is not that hard, but it requires you to actually show up without a script, without a rehearsed line, without the goal of being impressive. Walk over. Use the environment. Say something honest. I've been trying to work up to saying hi for the last 10 minutes, which is embarrassing, but here I am. That's not weak. That's disarming. It's real. And real cuts through the noise faster than anything polished ever could. 4. Handle the awkward pause like a professional. Silences happen. They happen to everyone. To extroverts, to professional speakers, to people who talk for a living. They are not a sign that something went wrong. They are a natural part of how conversation breathes. Shy people tend to experience silence as failure. The moment it appears, panic sets in and they say the first thing that comes to mind, which is usually random, off-topic, and makes things worse. Or they retreat entirely, using the silence as confirmation that they never should have started talking in the first place. Neither response is correct. The right response to an awkward pause is to let it exist for one beat longer than feels comfortable, and then use it. You can name it lightly. Okay, that's the official awkward pause. A small laugh, a shared acknowledgement, and suddenly the silence becomes something you navigated together instead of something that defeated you. That shared moment of honesty, yes, this is slightly awkward and we're both fine, is often where real comfort between two people begins. Alternatively, use the pause to steer. So, completely different topic. And take the conversation somewhere new. Pauses are not dead ends. They're intersections. You can choose a new direction. 5. Ask questions that actually mean something. There are 2 types of questions in small talk. There are the questions everyone asks. What do you do? Where are you from? How do you know the host? And there are the questions that make people feel like you actually see them. The first type is fine. It opens doors. But the second type is what makes someone walk away from a conversation thinking about you. The shift is simple. Instead of asking about facts, ask about meaning. Not what do you do, but what made you choose that field. Not where are you from, but do you miss it, or is here better? Not how long have you been doing that, but is it what you thought it would be? These questions do something ordinary questions don't. They signal that you're curious about the person's inner experience, not just their biography. And most people are quietly starved for that kind of attention. They spend entire days answering surface questions and never getting to say anything that actually reflects who they are. You be the person who asks differently. You'll be surprised how quickly people open up, and how much easier the conversation becomes when you're dealing in something real. 6. Exit well. This is the part nobody talks about and almost everyone gets wrong. Conversations need endings. And how you end a conversation matters, especially if you want it to continue later. Most shy people either linger too long, unable to find a graceful exit so they stay past the point of comfort, or they disappear abruptly because the silence scared them off. Both of these leave a strange aftertaste. A clean exit sounds like this. I've really enjoyed talking to you. I'm going to grab a drink, but I hope we get to talk more later. Simple, warm, specific. It closes the moment without closing the door. And if it's someone you genuinely want to see again, whether that's a potential friend, a professional contact, or someone you're attracted to, say so directly. I'd love to continue this conversation sometime. Can I get your number? Not complicated, not a speech, just honest. The people who seem naturally good at social situations aren't working from a playbook of perfect lines. They're just willing to be direct about what they want. Directness, delivered with warmth and without pressure, is almost never unwelcome. It's almost always respected. 7. Build the muscle. Here's the part that nobody wants to hear, but everyone needs to. You get better at small talk by doing small talk. Not by reading about it, not by watching other people do it, not by preparing the perfect approach in your head until everything feels safe enough to try. By doing it, imperfectly, repeatedly, in situations where it doesn't fully work. Every awkward conversation you have is training. Every silence you survive, every stumbling opener, every exchange that fizzles after 2 minutes, all of it is data. All of it is practice. All of it is building something in you that eventually stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like just how you talk to people. Start small. The cashier at the grocery store, the person waiting beside you for the elevator, the colleague you've nodded at for 6 months but never actually spoken to. Low stakes, real practice. The goal isn't to have a perfect conversation. The goal is to have one more conversation than you had yesterday, and then one more the day after that. Shyness doesn't disappear. For most people, it never fully goes away, but it stops running the show when the alternative, actually connecting with people, becomes familiar enough that your brain stops flagging it as a threat. Here's what it all comes down to. Small talk has a reputation it doesn't deserve. People dismiss it as shallow, pointless, a social obligation to endure. But small talk is actually the threshold of everything meaningful that happens between people. Every deep friendship started with a surface conversation. Every relationship, romantic, professional, personal, began with someone deciding to say something when they could have said nothing. The shy person standing at the edge of the room isn't less capable of connection than anyone else. They're often more capable, more observant, more thoughtful, more genuinely interested in what people have to say, but they haven't yet learned to translate that into the first 30 seconds of a conversation. That's all this is. The first 30 seconds. You don't have to be loud. You don't have to be charming. You don't have to have the perfect line or the magnetic personality or the effortless confidence of someone who's never felt nervous in their life. You just have to show up, say something real, pay attention, and be willing to let the conversation go wherever it goes. The rest takes care of itself.